Hey, Mike Callahan here. I want to make a quick video. A lot of talk around stacking your virtual employee bench. I've been talking about this for years. Jonathan Potoshnik of the Lawn Care Millionaire and I talked about this probably almost 4 years ago on a Lawn Care Millionaire videos where I first introduced this concept, and Jonathan necessarily wasn't calling it the same exact thing, but very similar concept. So to give you some background, what your virtual employee bench is, and then how many people are too many on that bench, we'll dive into that. But just want to lay a little context here. So basically, the reason why we got into stacking this virtual bench is basically we grew our business so we almost went out of business. We couldn't find enough employees to actually do the work in the field. So what we did is we kind of went back to the drawing board and inverted a sales pipeline to bring in more employees. So in order to do that, there was certain things that were weighing us down. So what we did is we built out, and I'll show you literally how we did it, verbally at least, is we went out and built a hosted landing page to go on our Craigslist, Indeed, or Facebook, and a form that someone could actually fill out electronically in the office. This would automatically enter them into our software program. And eventually, through some different revs of this, we made an English and Spanish version. The Spanish version was originally in like book Spanish. We ended up having somebody go through and turn this into Spanish, street Spanish, so it would resonate more. So we've got our English and Spanish version of our landing page. It goes on your Craigslist, Indeed, or Facebook, wherever you're looking online for employees. You got one in the office, they come in through an iPad or a spare computer, they can fill that out. Then we drive them into an online application. We're going to make them jump through some general hoops, especially in New York. A lot of people were trying to just fill out job applications and work the unemployment system. So obviously this was a pain in the butt because we had people filling applications out and potentially getting to us to get a job interview, and they would no show. Now, it didn't prevent everybody from no showing, but it weeded them out. So we're buying that time back that the business owner and manager truly want to hold precious. Once they got through that online application, they met the threshold, a manual, now an automated task would happen in the office. So Christine in my office would literally call them and say, hey, Dave, I noticed you filled out the application. Got a couple quick questions for you to make sure there's a cultural or alignment of values. And then if they were basically an A or B ranking in her mind, she would set up an interview date and time, enter that into the software, and then an automated text would go out and remind them the week before and the day before the interview. And we'd assign homework for them to go out to the DMV to get a driver's abstract. Once again, to get some skin in the game. Now, we're at the part of the equation where we stack that virtual bench. So we're going to go out and interview once or twice or 3 times a week. What we did in our company is we interviewed every Monday and Wednesday for every position in the business, including my own. Now, there were certain points in the year that we actually went out 3 times a year to interview. And the reason why we did this is we looked back historically for the lawn care season, especially the biggest spikes of basically someone getting fired or quitting. Historically, I can go back 5 or 6 years, and within a week, either way, around Memorial Day, 4th of July, the week of August 18th for my birthday, just a coincidence, but that's literally that week. And the last week of October, those were the burnout rates with the weather, the heat, the rain, whatever it was. For some reason, based around those holidays in the middle of August, we had somebody either quit or get fired. So when we got up about a week and a half to 2 weeks before those dates, we would go out and interview on Fridays as well, because we wanted even more volume of bodies to get in there to review if they're qualified. And at that interview, we were stacking that bench. So basically, we had a qualified labor pool that we could draw from. We'd rank them in an A, B, and C fashion with the interviewer's comments. And then in the software, we could search, I want all my A applicants from, let's say, the last 15 or 20 days. What this allowed us to do is go in and have a qualified labor pool or virtual bench. I use the analogy of a sports team. We're stacking the bench. So the minors or the guys and girls on the bench are ready to replace the A players on the field. So when you have that 2-person crew and the 1 person doesn't show up, and you have a 2-person crew now that is basically 1 person, this is when we always would get blackmailed by the individual running that mowing crew going, hey, I usually run with the other guy. I need a $2 an hour raise if you want me to work by myself today. Well, I will tell you that gentleman may have finished that day, but I will bet you he wasn't around or she wasn't around on the following Monday. We'd go in, go to our virtual bench or our qualified labor pool and search for all the A candidates, and we'd go out and replace them. By doing this, it puts the business owner back in control. Before then, the employees could blackmail us. They could push us over that barrel, and they knew they had us in control and in a corner. And that's not what we were looking for. So we've been doing this probably 5 or 6 years. There's other software platforms you could basically run side by side. The platform we use is Service Autopilot. We like it all under one roof, so it's searchable. We're not paying for 2 software platforms, and there's one point of entry. But I don't care if you're doing this manually. This is the process we used, and we did it manually to begin with. But having a systematic way of going out and interviewing every Monday, Wednesday, and sometime Friday, when we had those turnover points around Memorial Day, 4th of July, the middle of August, and the end of October, we were in control. What this did is it avoided us going out and hiring the first person through the door with a pulse. When we started to really scale that business, we figured out marketing and then how to automate those marketing things. We couldn't put enough people on these trucks. It was almost impossible. But the reason why this happened is we were looking for the people when we needed them. The key to business, the key to stability, in my opinion, and the turning point to scale to that million market and beyond is figuring out employees. And this is well before the labor crisis that we had. So we're going to go out, we're constantly interviewing, we're building a database that's searchable, and then we are in control. So you hit that springtime rush, we can work that database. While we have them in that database or that virtual bench, this labor pool, we're going to nurture them with some communication. And to answer the main question, I'm going to continue the conversation on how we actually started retaining millennial employees and then train them and retain them. But to answer the specific question of how many people are too many on that bench, there is never too many people on that virtual bench. You stack that bench as deep as you can. You stack it down to the next two farm league leagues. It doesn't matter because they're going to constantly be turning. But if you had a good process in place and you're genuine about it and you continue to communicate with them, even if you lose them off your virtual bench right now, they may go to the competitor down the street that's not as organized. They don't have a culture. They don't pay on time, or all the other crazy things that happen in the service industry. Guess what? You've made a great impression, and through a manual and then hopefully an automated solution, you followed through the way you should each and every time, like you said you did. That is going to differentiate yourself. So I implore you, if you haven't done it now, start looking for every position in the company, including your own, because if you're looking for your replacement or somebody to run your business or a middle manager and you start looking for them when you need them, it is absolutely too late. I found the gentleman that ran my business in 1.5 to 2 years before I really needed him. But that skill set and that individual that's a cultural alignment will not show up when you need them. So this is going to be the foundations of a great business that can be scalable, replicatable without you. Or if you're still in the driver's seat as the business owner, the stress, the anxiety, the chaos that happens when 2 or 3 people no call, no show in the morning. And you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm the only business owner this has ever happened to. What am I doing wrong? You probably aren't doing anything wrong, except you're not constantly recruiting and building that virtual bench as big as you can get it. And this will give you that frame of mind. You may be low for guys and girls, maybe for a day or two, but work that bench and get them in. And once you get them in, after you hire them, before you train them, we want to screen them out one more time. And the way we tackle this is we indoctrinate it into a culture, a mission, a vision, a value, and value system. And our millennial workforce that was coming in, we couldn't hold on to them for more than maybe a season. And they were really good and they were overpaid. And what we did eventually, at this point, I was an absentee owner. So I went out to them when they left and said, hey, how come you guys aren't coming back this winter or coming back this summer or next summer? Is it the guy running the business? I'm like, no, he's a great guy. I know where he's there. Is it the company? No, great company. Is it the pay? No, the pay is really good. It's above average, but it's only a paycheck. And what I realized and didn't believe until that point is people, especially the millennial workforce, are not motivated by money. As long as you're hitting their minimal needs and above that a little bit, the motivation is a cultural and ethical tie-in. They want to be giving more. They want to be part of something great. So we went out to a company in Arizona. We did probably a $25,000 worth of culture training, developing a mission, a vision, values. And then we took that back and told like the story of how we give away free plowing to veterans and different things we did in the community and wrapped it around our core values. And that retained these employees 3 to 5 years. Wasn't a lifetime, but it was a hell of a lot better than barely a summer. So that was the key to success. And where we failed a little bit there was we had a manual process to indoctrinate our mission, vision, values. And in the spring, it didn't happen the way it should have, or when somebody else did it other than the core group of people, it wasn't reflective of what our values really were, and it was not explained the way it should have been. So we automated that, and now it was a consistent message that people could buy into each and every time. So now we've indoctrinated them. Now we're going to go out and do some automated tax document collection, because that was another failing point, that we were so busy that last minute we'd have to get the tax docs. It was an ugly situation as far as experience for the new employee, because it wasn't a consistent, predictable process. Now, we obviously got the payroll documents in when we needed to get them to get it paid the first week, but it was rushed. Now with a process, we hire them, we indoctrinate them, culture, mission, vision, values, we get their tax docs, and it goes up to 3 attempts with deadlines through the first week. And if Joe didn't fill out his tax docs by the 3rd and final deadline, we'd fire Joe. Because Joe, if he couldn't follow simple directions to fill out his tax documents to get paid, I'm willing to bet Joe couldn't follow the simple directions and process and procedures that makes your service and your business great. So we screen them out online before they get to the interview to buy time back. After we hire them, before we train them, we go in and screen them out again and make sure they're indoctrinated. Final process. Before we ever get them into the field, office staff would go through a series of about 36 videos and 6 different steps with testing how to use the software platform we used. And we were using Service Autopilot for that whole process. So all the way from lead acquisition, all the way through billing and fulfillment, we trained the admin to a specific process that was predictable. So for whatever reason, our office staff would have ever left, which they didn't. Thank God they didn't, because they were awesome. Still working with me here today at Simple Growth, Tammy and Christine. Thank you, thank you. But Christine and Tammy were awesome, but we developed this system. So if one of them had to leave for some reason, we could literally pull somebody off the street, and within a week, conservatively, they could be up and running and using Service Autopilot, which is a pretty robust system with no major learning curve, because we took the whole entire system and condensed the training down to 4 or 5 main screens of success. If it was a field person, what we did is we went out with a tripod, 50, 60 bucks off Amazon, a smartphone and a wireless mic, and made videos, not high production. We tried the high production thing. It doesn't work as well. It's not, it does not resonate with the employee, but they like to see you in our red Callahan shirts and kind of fumbling around and pausing, awkward in front of the camera, but they could recognize somebody in that uniform that wasn't a paid actor. And we went through and made videos, how to stick edge, how to weed whack, how to use each type of mower, how to blow. So each service and each piece of equipment had a dedicated video, the do's and don'ts. And it doesn't always have to be perfection. Sometimes with the weed whackers, especially with our H-2B workers, or some of our workers that struggled with English as a second language, we would literally take the weed whacker and scalp an area and say, no, or no bueno, this is no good. This is what you don't do, and this is what you do. So it's a visual representation. So if the employee doesn't have a full grasp of the English language, or I'm talking too fast from being from New York and they're a Southern worker from Florida, maybe they're not picking up as quick as I'm spitting it out, there's a visual representation and it slows it down conceptually. In addition to that, we would also have some written text. So whether they're a visual learner or a conceptual learner that would read as well. So we would go in and train them to these videos. And then we had an automated process to track the fulfillment of employment handbooks and contracts. But circling back to that virtual bench, labor market's crazy. That's the biggest issue. Scale of business, business owner anxiety, and stress is around employees. So your bench can never be too big as far as virtually. And I'm guessing right now, if you're looking at this video, you are having some kind of employee stress. If it's only one person or 100 people on your team, I recommend going out once or twice a week at a bare minimum and ramp it up to 3 times there. And you're probably looking at the video. Maybe you're a solo entrepreneur and you've got one technician with you and you're like, that's crazy. I don't have the time. I would go out and do that via phone interview, but do it once a week. So let that individual working with you know you're constantly recruiting. They don't have you up against the wall, but if that person gets hurt or doesn't show up, you're in control. Or heaven forbid, you get hit by a rock in the head or something and you can't work the next month. There's actually 2 or 3 gentlemen in my local market that I saw in a local Facebook group. One of the guys slid off a ladder. He can't work the rest of the month or the rest of the year. I forget what it was, but he's in a pickle. So if he'd been constantly recruiting, he would have been good. So hopefully this is helpful. If you have any comments or questions, drop them below. But your virtual bench cannot be too big. Go out and recruit for the positions you need in the future and possibly tomorrow if somebody's a no-call or no-show, or you have to get rid of them. So hope everybody has a great day. Any comments or questions, drop below. Big shout out to Michelle and Doug at Pink Colors, guys. Love what you're doing as well. Talk to you guys later.